So a tuna fish sandwich walked into a bar, and the bartender said, "Sorry, we don't serve food here." That's it. That's the one I've got. Because the subject of today's service is going to be fish stories that get bigger every time we tell them. And so today, we never do this here, but today we're going to set up a special confessional booth so that everybody here can tell the biggest story they've ever told and then say, like, yeah, okay, fine, it wasn't really like that. No, I'm kidding. We're not doing confession today. You might think so, but somebody once did try to confess to me when I was in seminary. And it didn't matter that I said, like, I'm not going to be a priest. I'm not even going to be a minister. I do not take confessions, and I cannot give. I can't absolve you. But nonetheless, she insisted on confessing, and she told this story. And this was a Holocaust survivor. And she told this awful story. And then at the end of it, she looked at me and she said, "And I will never forgive." And then she looked at me as if I was going to say something like, "Look deep in your heart." But I looked at her and I said, Don't forgive that. Don't ever. So I don't know. So I can't do confessions because that's pretty much what I would tell everybody. It's like, you don't have to forgive. So I absolve you all of whatever it is that you carry in your heart that you feel that you can never forgive. I forgive you for not forgiving. There, and we're done. Now I should just turn off the microphone because now I feel like I've given you something that's actually worthwhile. Welcome to this place which we make holy by our presence. Here you can bring your brokenness and your personal glow, your fatigue and your aches and your energy. Here you need not hide nor pretend nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, where the human is celebrated, where compassion is strength. Welcome to this place. Together we make it a holy place. Please stand if you're able for hymn 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Open your hearts. Is your mic on?
Check. Is it on now? Okay. Okay.
My mic on? Now it's on. Is it on now? Okay, we're going to welcome Jennifer Ruley to the congregation. In your inserts, I have new members affirmation. In just one second, Jennifer is going to come up. Come on up, Jennifer. And she's going to read the new member affirmation. And the congregation, that's you, are going to read the congregational covenant. And then together, all of us, we're going to read, we pledge to affirm and promote. And then we have 7 principles. And I would like 7 people to read the 7 principles. So it's almost everybody in here. So if you want your favorite one, raise your hand really fast. I'll pass the microphone around. So this is our new members affirmation. You are going to read that one right there.
Is this on? It's Rowley, Jennifer Rowley.
Jennifer Rowley.
Okay. After much thought and meditation, this spiritual path is the one I've freely chosen. To this congregation, I pledge my talents, time, financial support, and love. I pledge that I will...
Okay.
It's not you guys. I pledge that I will not cease in my quest for spiritual knowledge. I accept fully the responsibilities inherent in a life that encompasses the 7 principles.
And then to the congregational covenant. That's what we're all going to read together. Does everybody have one, or does anybody need one? It should be in your leaflet. Okay. Oh, that was all me. Okay. We welcome you as you once were welcomed ourselves. And together we were all just going to read the first line. We pledge to affirm and promote
the inherent worth and dignity of every person,
justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations.
A free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large.
The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
And we'd all like to welcome Jennifer Rowley. Rowley.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
One of the really special things, I think one of the really special benefits of belonging to a congregation of this size is that we know each other and we still have time every week that we can invite anyone here or everyone here to share something special, to share something that is special to you, or to share something that is kind of heavy and weighing you down, or to just share something that's fun or interesting. And in larger congregations, they can't do that. And there are some larger Unitarian fellowships where everybody gets to come up and, put a stone in something, or whatever, and symbolically show that they've got some feelings, and that is very, very nice. But I think it's really special here that we can do that, we can share this in words. And so it doesn't mean that everybody has to, but I'd like each of you to take a moment and think about if there is some special joy or some special concern from this last week or something in the week to come. And then I invite you to come up and light a candle and share that with us in words, if it's ready to come out in words, or you can share it with us in silence if it's not ready for words yet.
Francie has a comment on Zoom. You're muted, Francie.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marge Gillis. I wanted to mention a real joy today. This is an anniversary for my brother. My brother was archdeacon in the Episcopal Church starting as of today, 40 years. So he's celebrating 40 years with the diocese. He was originally with the Diocese of Buffalo and now is he's in Florida. And that's another whole conversation we have, why he's in Florida. But anyway, he loves it there. He loves it in the church. And even though we were very different in terms of our religious beliefs, I'm so proud of him. So this is for Bruce. and he pronounces it Gillies. That's another difference. Anyone else?
Okay, this is big sorrow. And I'm so glad that I could be here to have people hug me after this. My mom has been staying with me. My parents divorced when I was young. We stayed with my dad. My mom's kind of a troubled person. But she's been staying with me lately. She was at community missions for 2 months. And then my half-brother, her son is like a drug addict. And she's codependent with him. And she's homeless because of him, because he's stealing from her and taking from her. And she just wants to help my baby. And I've been trying to get her in counseling, and that's not working yet. But last night, like she knew before, if she was going to move my house, my brother's not allowed there. She said, okay. But then yesterday, I was away, and he just showed up at the house. And so I was at my grandmother's house at ER, at the ECMC with my grandmother, who I thought had a brain bleed, and that was bad. But she was fine. But apparently my brother just showed up last night to talk to my mom. He needed help. He slipped out in the rain last night somewhere, and then showed up again this morning talking to her. My husband knows that my mom caused a lot of issues with me mentally or whatever. So he doesn't want my brother around at all. That was like our thing. My mom has quite a temper. So somehow or another, my mom and my husband started yelling that, like, I'm her mother. She needs to help me, this and that. And I don't know, they were just screaming in like the outside. And my son said something to my mom, and she like kind of was strong with him, not mean, but like she said, like, this is my son, he's allowed here anytime he wants. And obviously that broke my son's heart, because he's so pure and innocent, and nobody's ever talked to him like that before. And it's just a big mess. And right before I left, my mom and brother walked away. I gave her $200 and her food stamps card, and I don't know what she's gonna do, and I don't know what my brother's gonna do. And I invited my husband to come here, but my son was just sulking. He wanted to be left alone. So I came here because I'm just glad to be here and get that all off, because I don't know. And my son, I mean, it was so great with my mom there. Like, her and my son were starting a garden, and they were out there every day, and she was so happy. And my brother went into rehab for like a week, and she was like better than I'd ever seen her. And she and my son were getting along like normal grandparents and kids. And it was so nice having my mom there at the house, and she could go up and wake her up and hang out with her and plant stuff in the garden, this and that, rent books at the library. And then my brother walked out of rehab, and now she's back down trying to do everything she can to help him, even though she has nothing to help him. And now they're like gonna probably sleep on the streets tonight, I don't know. But my husband's mainly concerned about me and my son, our mental health, his family. And yeah, I don't know. So that's just heavy on me right now. Thank you for listening.
So sorry.
Well, mine is between a joy and a sorrow. Let me take this. Okay. Sorry, between the joy is some of you know that are friends with me on Facebook that I've been getting my kitchen redone. The contractors came out and they tore out that old 1950s sink, which I couldn't stand because it was pink. And it was made of solid steel. Those guys were great because I could never figure out how to get that out of there. They ripped up my floor and took out I got rid of my old gas stove, my old refrigerator. So, and then there was a day that, let's see, that was, I think Tuesday they started, I think Wednesday. They couldn't make it over. And then Thursday they came back, they put the floor in. And then that they had other jobs. They got too many, I guess, irons in the fire, sort of, and that's happening to a lot of contractors. They're short of people. So I'm not angry and anything like that, just a little bit frustrated because when he came over Friday, his worker called in sick on him. His name is Andre, the guy that owns the company. So he's trying, so there's no way you could have gotten the whole job done in a day because he would have had to get all the stripping around the edge of the floor. Then he would have had to do the plumbing, the electrical for my kitchen sink because I'm having him put an 18-inch dishwasher in there. And so he's got to do the electrical, the plumbing. Anyways, the good news is he finally got the sink in, but he made a lot of trips to the store to get parts because some of the parts weren't fitting. That's what took a lot of the time Friday. Gets it all done, and it leaked. It leaks near the top. He's got to pull the sink back up, unscrew it from the wall again, but he needs help. This is a cast iron 1939 sink built when the house was built, because I'm trying to bring the house back to its original, uniqueness, but has a little bit of modern on top of that. So anyways, I'm still without the drain works through the kitchen sink. That doesn't leak. So, but I'm basically without a kitchen sink, without a refrigerator, without a gas stove, at least until this coming Thursday, it looks like. So, but I'm sure when it's done, I'll look back on this and say it was well worth it. I don't believe in really pressuring these guys too much because I know that they're short of workers, but I'd rather have them do it right the first time and get it done, and that way I can say in the end it was well worth it.
Go ahead, Francie.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate good thoughts and prayers and easy surgery tomorrow. I'm having a kidney stone, pesky kidney stone, finally taken out. Thank you. Tomorrow, Monday.
And then I had one.
My husband texted me that my son's still crying, so I said, I just called them and invited them here. But if they come here, I would like to request to sing that song again, and to rejoice and come in. Oh, sure. Because that's the song that was stuck in my son's head for the entire week. Because when I came home, last time we sang that, I sang it, and so then he knows that song from at home, and I remember the morning he was playing in a box, making a spaceship. It was when NASA was here, so we had spaceships on his mind. He was in the box in our backyard singing, and to rejoice and come in. So if they come, can we please sing that again?
And I have a small joy, maybe a slight concern. I'm a GED teacher and I focus on math, and I try to join all the different math communities online, and I go to the conferences, and somehow I agreed and it got elected to be an editor of the Math Practitioner, which is of the Adult Network Numeracy Online. So wish me luck.
Oh, great.
Morning. I'm not the expert on this, but I do have a little information, very little, which came from Nan. I think most of us knew Betsy was due for knee surgery on Friday. And I don't know a lot about this. I do know from Nan, I'm just passing along what I've heard, that Betsy came through it well. And apparently so well that she's expected to be going home very soon possibly as early as this weekend. So seems pretty amazing to me, but it's a real blessing. I say that as a UU Christian. I'll claim that this is it's a blessing to me. Okay, I'm really happy, and as I'm sure we all are. So I just want to light a candle that I'm absolutely thrilled, and I'm sure we all are, that we're going well for our Betsy. Here's to a funny story.
And it's about Bill and Peter and Jim. So I don't know what time I checked my email, but there it was. We're coming over by 9 o'clock to go up on the roof. And I said, well, it's pouring and raining here. About 3 minutes before they arrived at the door, I jumped out of my pajamas. And the reason they have to go on the roof, I don't know how many of you know, there is an electric fence, and I think, was it Peter that originally put it in? And Bill designed the little light that I am on guard duty for to make sure if it goes out that I tell somebody so they can go back up and fix the broken fence. So far, since I've been here, I've removed a stinky squirrel and a bird. Once Peter just picked up the squirrel and tossed it over, and he said, whoops, I hope that didn't go in Liz and Carl's yard. So anyway, lights are on and Bill's not at home.
Just a quick update on Jean Speck. Keep her in your heart. She's scheduled for the 12th for her hip, but they want to do some tests on her first, so she may not get it on the 12th, but she's still hoping to get it soon. So, just as soon as we know something, her granddaughter is supposed to let us know. So when we hear something, we'll tell everybody. But keep her in your thoughts.
Yeah, I want to express sorrow. Unfortunately, me and my mother, we've been really close for the past several years, and this past 2 weeks we haven't heard from her. And she said she had issues with her phone, and I went by to see her and check on her, and they said she was at home. And I called her yesterday. She answered the phone, so I called you back. And I haven't heard from her, and I called her. So I wanted you got to pray for my mother and two sisters. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it's a joy to see so many candles in this font this morning. And I'm going to light one more candle for those joys and concerns that we are holding inside, but that we are not ready to share yet. And now is the time of the offertory when we share our gifts for the work of this church. Before I start my sermon this morning, I would like to apologize. The snooze button and we got into a thing this morning, and so I've been like a half step ahead of this service this Sunday, but not my usual step and a half ahead. All right. When I was young, a new James Bond movie would come out, and some TV channel would decide to play all of the old ones straight through. So you'd pick out an old video cassette that nobody was watching anymore, set the VCR on the absolute lowest recording quality, and you could get 3 of them, 3 whole movies, and then live the magic on your 12-inch TV screen. Then I finished college and started scrounging up, used DVDs that looked great on that big 24-inch TV screen. And then TVs got bigger, and now the DVDs are starting to look about as grainy as those old worn-out VHS cassettes. So it was time for Elizabeth and I to have a serious talk. Would we take our relationship with James Bond to the next level? And we agreed. And then, for about $40 of birthday money, I found a used collection on Blu-ray. So now we can see every individual strand of Sean Connery's hair. And if you insist it's not all real, that's a problem with you, not a problem with him. And you can pinpoint when Roger Moore gets too old for the role right down to the second. And there's this little tiny scar on Pierce Brosnan's face that actually, and nobody thought this was even possible, it actually makes him more handsome. So Elizabeth and I are rewatching all of the James Bond films in no particular order. And it never would have occurred to me to ask before we got married, but now I know that two people together lip syncing to a scene is romantic, whereas one I now realize is kind of pathetic. Rewatching these movies, we are reminded that James Bond can look cool anywhere. Beaches, casinos, mountaintops, driving a car, flying a helicopter, and let's momentarily forget the moon buggy scene, riding a motorcycle, flying a plane, riding a motorcycle off a cliff so that he can free fall into a plane. And he might be the only human being on Earth who can actually look cool on skis. Now I know that when you're on skis and everyone else is on skis, coolness is a relative thing. But seriously, watching a movie in June, it's obvious nobody looks cool on skis. But if anybody could, it's Agent 007. But there's one place that even James Bond can't look cool, and that's underwater. As soon as the movie goes underwater, we hit the fast forward button. And it's not just because there's no snappy dialogue to lip sync with. We just both get this queasy mixture of boredom and anxiety during underwater scenes. It's kind of like a seasickness. It turns out every actor who has ever played James Bond, and I'm willing to bet whoever plays 007 next, they all have this one thing in common. Their bodies are all clearly designed for tree climbing. Or more precisely, tree clinging. Even Roger Moore, who looks a little bit reptilian, but definitely a tree climbing type of lizard. So you put them in deep water, and it's no wonder they look silly. They've got too many things sticking out. They've got these gangly appendages. They've got no fins. They're not aerodynamic. Their heads are round. I mean, everything about the human body is wrong for just moving quickly through water. Now, we don't have to get defensive about this. A trout would look pretty silly climbing a tree. That's clearly not what it was designed to do. By my calculations, if one of those upstream leaping salmons, like the real champs who can hurdle a waterfall, if one of those salmon was able to build sufficient airspeed velocity to land in a tree, it would then be faced with two of the immutable laws of physics. Number one, bears climb trees. Number two, bears love salmon. Also, if salmon were in trees, human fishermen would have a much easier time getting their children interested, because then you wouldn't have to stand still for 4 hours. You could be as loud and rowdy as you want, and it doesn't matter if the fish hear you. Shaking the tree is fine, and if all else fails, you can just wait underneath with a net, and it'll eventually suffocate and fall. Anyway, fish don't belong in trees. Humans don't really belong in deep water. But you can't stop James Bond from trying. And when they're going to try something in James Bond movies, not only do they have to try it, but they have to try it bigger than last time. As a matter of fact, a James Bond movie is kind of like a fish story in that it has to get bigger every time you tell it. Telling a story that gets bigger every time you tell it makes sense when you're talking about a fish that you've caught. It can basically start to grow as soon as you're done eating it and the bones are in the fire. Then you can start telling the story and the fish can start to get bigger. There are certain fish stories that suffer from exaggeration. The classic case is the prophet Jonah. The Bible says that he was swallowed by a fish. And then preachers and painters have been enlarging this creature ever since. Because really, a man can't survive inside of a fish. But the belly of a whale could theoretically hold enough oxygen and he could recline in comfort. I just found a Sunday school coloring page where they show Jonah inside of a whale, and he actually has enough space to kneel and pray. And never mind for a moment the darkness, the cold, the horror of sloshing around in the stomach acids with half-digested ocean biomatter. Envisioning Jonah inside a spacious, oxygenated whale actually comes from some insistence that the Jonah story must be scientifically plausible. In other words, the true believers vehemently argue that this was not a miracle. And yet I feel like the implausibility is a major factor in the power of the story. It's an interesting story because it's impossible. You put a 5-foot man in a 7-foot fish, and you've got my attention. And since the fish is unspecified, and I'm not a marine biologist, I'll just have to call it the holy mackerel. Whatever it was, the story is actually better if the fish contained no air. Although it's not impossible that some loose tube from the fish's respiratory system could kind of latch into Jonah's navel. You know what? Forget that. Let's just leave it mysterious. A modern submarine on Jonah's journey, 2,500 miles from southern Spain to Israel, could take 15 days. But the Bible says he was there in 3 days and 3 nights. Some Christian commentators propose that upon being swallowed, Jonah immediately did the logical thing and suffocated to death. Then after 3 days, the Lord resurrected him as he reached his destination. Now this proposition fixes everything. It is both more scientific and more miraculous than any other theory. The only problem is, having this story 600 years before Jesus kind of deflates the climactic crux of all cosmic Christian history, the Christ arising from the tomb. It's supposed to be kind of a one-time special thing. Like if Mary of Magdala arrived at the cave and an angel was there who said, "The tomb is empty, Jesus is risen." And she said, "You call that news? Jonah rose from the dead in a fish, backwards, in high heels." At least that's how I imagine it, because given the musculoskeletal differences and the swishy movement of a fish, a human passenger would either come out a fantastic belly dancer or just a bag of broken bones. So I can only conclude that the fish moved like Fred Astaire and Jonah learned to be its Ginger Rogers. The most comical element of all Jonah commentary is that the story is not about a fish at all. That would be like saying that Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea was a story about a boat. Or maybe that's a bad example, since that story really is about a fish. But the biblical book of Jonah is not about a relationship between a person and a fish. It's a love-hate triangle in which God tells a prophet to bring a message to the capital of the Assyrian Empire. Clean up your act or face total destruction. And the prophet, Jonah, an Israelite, thinks that an Assyrian apocalypse is a fantastic idea, since Assyria had recently invaded Israel and committed all manner of shocking Assyrian atrocities. So when Jonah hears that if they don't get this message, they're all going to get wiped out, he says, that's great. And he actually takes the warning message and travels as far as he can in the opposite direction. The fish in the Jonah story is merely a plot device. It's like a deus ex aquatica by which God moves this prophet to where he was told to go. And Jonah arrives in Nineveh still hoping to see it destroyed, and kind of begrudgingly mumbles the message. And then he's furious to find that they do repent, and the disaster that he was so hoping to see is averted. God forgives the Ninevites, and Jonah is still angry at the end of the book. The most plausible theory that I have encountered is that the book of Jonah may have originated as a satire, making fun of prophets who gleefully spouted doom and gloom and would literally rather jump off a boat than give any good news. And then this lampoon was enlivened with a big fish story that was kind of intended to sound idiotic. And maybe the joke is really on anyone who tries to take it literally. If you should doubt that the story was intended to be taken with a grain of salt, here is a Bible verse. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. We don't find out what the Lord said. Perhaps it was the shock of hearing God's voice that caused the fish to heave ashore and Ralph up this prophet. Or maybe the fish couldn't talk with its mouth full, but wanted to ask why God allowed all these hooks and nets and traps in the sea. On the fourth day of the book of Genesis, creation story, God created the fish and spoke to them, commanding them to be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas, but did not specify that then they would become the fruit of the sea for humans to eat. And then when this fish finally gets its revenge by swallowing this dude, God breaks centuries of silence, telling him to spit it up again. And we're still left with the question, instead of talking to this angry prophet and then talking to the fish, why didn't God just go talk to the Assyrians? They were the target audience. Or I suppose it was Thomas Paine who proposed that if God really wanted to shock the Assyrians, he should have had Jonah swim ashore and cough up the whale. The book of Jonah leaves the faithful with more questions than answers, and that's okay. The whole point of faith is believing something that seems impossible. And Jonah is not the best fish story in the Bible, at least by my personal ranking as somebody with a master's degree in Bible study. There's the famous gospel story where the temple accountants ask Jesus if he pays his taxes. And he says, yes, of course, even though he never has any money. So he tells his friend Peter, go cast a line in the lake, and the first fish that he pulls out will have a coin in its mouth that will cover the amount that is due. This is very special among gospel stories because the narrator never tells us whether this plan worked out or not, or if Peter even went. It's never mentioned again. But one way or another, Jesus miraculously evades getting arrested for tax evasion. I'd put that at number 2. My personal favorite fish tale in the Bible is in between the Old and New Testaments, hidden away in the apocryphal book of Tobit. How many of us have ever read or heard of this book. That's okay. A young man named Tobias is sent on a long journey to find his cousin and marry her. And even though they live in different parts of the country, he has heard of her reputation. She has married 7 different men, and each one of them has died on their wedding night. So she's a demon, or she has a demon. It's something to do with demonology. So he goes off to marry his kind of serial killing cousin. He's crossing Assyria by foot. He sits to wash his dusty feet in the Tigris River when suddenly this big fish takes his whole foot in its mouth, tries to eat it, and he wrestles it to the shore. His traveling companion, an angel in disguise, instructs him to gut the fish, keep the heart, liver, and gall, which will come in handy later. Then he finds his cousin and he marries her, and his friend the angel gives him some wedding night advice. And here I am going to quote scripture. When you enter the bridal chamber, take some of the fish's liver and heart and put them in the embers of the incense. An odor will be given off. The demon will smell it and flee, and will never be seen near her anymore. Now, when you are about to go to bed with her, both of you must first stand up and pray, imploring the Lord of heaven that mercy and safety will be granted to you. Do not be afraid. I presume that you will have children by her, and that they will be like brothers to you. Now say no more. What more was there to say? Except that their children would technically be his cousins, not his siblings. So he does this, and the stink of burning fish guts does indeed drive out the demon, and he brings her home to his parents, and his father, Tobit, who was blinded long ago when he raised his face toward the heavens and some bird droppings fell into his eyes. Anyway, Tobias still has the bile of that fish. And somehow everyone miraculously agrees that rubbing the fish bile into the old man's eyes couldn't do any harm, and his sight is restored. Now that is a great fish story. It's got everything: adventure, romance, comedy, danger, angels, demons, a happy ending. That is my favorite fish story in the Bible. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. When we say it's a book of the Bible, what we mean is it's like 11 pages long. All right. I think it's safe to assume that no one here has ever told a fish story. One of those inflatable tales that keeps getting a little bit bigger every time we tell it. No one here, right? Me neither. But we've all heard them. And the next time someone gets going with one of their fish tales, and you kind of feel like the thing is getting so inflated that you kind of want to deflate that puffed up story. Remember, we are creatures who use words to convey feelings. And catching that 4-inch minnow after 5 hours at the dock, it really does feel this big. Because you waited for it, and you worked for it, and you finally got something. We enlarge our stories when the words are too small to convey the feelings. And we want to share that feeling, the way it felt in that moment, we want to share it with somebody else. Even if that means that we got to use words that are a little bit bigger, even if it means we got to make the story a little bit bigger in order to really share what it felt like inside to be there at that moment. And religious scriptures and mythologies are kind of full of that. Experiences, feelings that were so big that if you wanted to make somebody feel like they were there, the only way you could do it is by kind of making the story maybe bigger than it really was. That's part of us. That's part of communication. That's part of feelings. That's part of being human. So the next time someone is telling you one of those big fish stories, remember that they are trying to share something real, something true. And remember, with a fish story, once the thing's been eaten and the bones are in the fire, it doesn't matter how big the fish actually was. Now I've got a special announcement to make. We are going to sing a rousing encore of one of my favorite songs. It's called Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. And I happen to know that everybody here is already warmed up for this song, right? It's fresh in your mind. So we're gonna do this extra strong, as if it was a big fish. So let's. Everybody, please stand if you are able. In is number 300.
But first, I have a nice fishy joke.
Oh, please.
You can tune a piranha, but you cannot tune a fish. Blah.
I'm very excited to say that my newest book has just come out. It is called Shakespeare's Goddess, The Divine Feminine on the English Stage, and it is a book about Greek, Roman, and Egyptian goddesses in Shakespeare's writing.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it is. So if you like goddesses or if you like Shakespeare, I recommend this. And this is not a sequel to Supernatural Shakespeare. It's kind of a companion volume. So if you haven't read that, That's okay. I'll have some of these available after the service and also after our adult education session. We have been doing a series on the development of Judaism, and so today I look forward to concluding that. So we're going to look at how Judaism has changed and developed in this last 2,000 years since the destruction of the Second Jerusalem Temple. And it's going to be a lot more fun than that makes it sound. It's going to be really interesting. We're gonna have fun in every kind of way except making fun of a religion. So we'll have a good time doing that. We'll do that. We'll start that in about 40 minutes. Together, we have sanctified this space. If you have found strength and comfort here, share some out there. Remember that you are blessed and you are a blessing and you are not alone. Please join me for the words of extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Well, I find this hard to believe, and I've just found it this morning in a book. In 1941, it came out, and apparently it sold over 1 million records. So I'm just going to give it a sight reading go. Down in the meadow in a itty bitty pool, fam itty fitty and a mama fitty foo, fim fed the mama fitty, fim me futan, and they fam all over the dam. And the translation is, down in the meadow in a little bitty pool, swam 3 little fishes and a mama fishy too. Swim, said the mama.